you everyone for joining us today. Very pleased to have University of Michigan and Taubman College of Architecture and Urban Planning today. For our workshop today, we have our topic is Future of Urban Technology. I hope I can be, I'm clear. So I'm going to introduce all the panelists for today, and I'm going to start with Brian Boyer, who is the program director at the Urban Technology Program at University of Michigan's Taubman College of Architecture and Urban Planning. We have Nihal Shetty, who is the country general manager at Rework India. We have Diana Friend, who is the admissions officer at Taubman College of Architecture and Urban Planning. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and I'm going to be your moderator. My name is Dhaval Mehta, and I'm the founder and CEO of Tni Career Counseling. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you students. Thank you counselors. It's lovely to have you today. And moving on to the next slide, we also have Rahul, Trey, and Deepa who joined us. I would really want to thank them for all the effort that they've put in to make sure that this happens. Thank you very much. At TNI Career Counseling, we're a certified global admissions consultant and test preparation venture for undergraduate, master's, and MBA programs in India and abroad. We recognize that planning a career is a family decision, and our initial personal one-to-one counseling with a parent and child helps identify goals, personality, learning styles, career values, and skill sets to help us guide the higher education outcome over time by advising on areas that need strengthening. We work with all stakeholders to make this possible. Thank you. Deepa, would you like...
everybody? Sure. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us in today. Thank you, Mr. Mehta, for introducing all the panelists. And I would like to introduce Mr. Dhaval Mehta, who is the CEO and founder. So Mr. Dhaval Mehta is an expert career coach who has 17 plus years of experience. He's also a NACAC member, Pearson Certified Career Counselor. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Deepa, please go ahead.
He's also an alumni of University of Michigan and Ann Arbor and Columbia University graduate. Mr. Mehta, I would like you to go ahead, please, and start the workshop.
Thank you, Deepa. Thank you very much. Lovely. So the flow of the workshop for today is 60 minutes. It's about 5 minutes where I'm providing an introduction and setting sort of a storyline for the flow of the workshop. And post that, I will pass the baton on to Nihal Shetty, who's the country manager for Rework India. And then Brian will take it on from there and give an introduction of urban technology at University of Michigan. And thereafter, we'll have sort of a project of a problem statement analysis. And then post that, there will be a question and answer session with Brian and Diana. Great. I want to introduce the program for urban technology before we move on. And I want to say urban technology and my discussion with Brian, it was very interesting. I thought the first time when I spoke to Brian about the program, it was incredible. I feel that it's great. It's the need of the hour to combine technology and urban design. And I feel my conversations have really led me to understand a lot more about how the program's going to help build careers for many areas, including UI, UX designer, policy analyst, a product designer, and I feel that's incredible for a bachelor's program. Urban technology is an emerging field at the intersection of technology, urbanism, and design. This is where apps, devices, and organizations are created with the aim of making cities better for all people. The Bachelor's of Science in Urban Technology at the University of Michigan is the first of its kind degree in this dynamic field. Through the program's unique winter start structure, you will begin classes at University of Michigan Ann Arbor campus during the winter term, and you will participate in spring intensive hosted in centers of urban innovation, including the city of Detroit. over to you. Well, okay, sorry, I'm going to go to this slide that says, what can you expect from today's session is hearing about urban technology from Brian, the curriculum, project, research work, exciting careers, the problem statement analysis and the life project, Q&A with Brian Boyer and Diana Friend. Introducing Nihal. Nihal is again the country manager at Rework India. He's a graduate of University of Michigan, and Nihal has previously held strategic roles in program management at Amazon and Cuman's power generation. At Rework, he used to support with strategy planning and forcing alliances. Nihal has now stepped into a new role where he is responsible for handling all the 34 Rework locations in India. Congratulations, Nihal. Over to you.
Great. Thanks a lot, Dhaval, for that. And thank you for setting this up for all the students out here. I'm very glad to be part of this esteemed panel with this group here. Good evening to all of you. Hope all of you are staying safe in these times. While I'm still getting used to these virtual sessions, I think with time, we're only getting better with this. So I just want to talk about a few things here with this group. I thought it's very relevant to the conversation that we're having today. One was both my experience at Michigan and two, my experience at Rework. So my association with the University of Michigan goes back more than a decade. I was a master's student at the Industrial and Operations Engineering department way back in 2006, 2007. Please don't guess my age with that year, but it's been more than a decade with that, right? Before that, when I was doing my undergraduate studies in India, I still vividly remember being not very clear with what I wanted to do next. Was it a job? Was it a master's in India? Was it a master's abroad? I had a lot of doubts in my mind. After speaking to a lot of seniors, family, friends, peers, I thought going abroad and studying in a world-class institute like the University of Michigan would broaden my perspectives in life, and that it would make it worthwhile, in terms of my experiences for the future. As I look back today, I'm very grateful for having made that decision, right? Because it has been a very pivotal experience and a very big milestone in my journey so far. And it's been primarily for two reasons, right? One was the quality of the education was impeccable, right? The faculty was world-class. The program was very well structured. It provided options to explore courses from a very different perspective and gave you options to even explore different departments. For example, I took courses from the Ross School of Business, under legends like C.K. Prahlad and Anil Karnani, who are well known in their fields, right? And I couldn't have done that anywhere in the world, right? So I think that was an amazing experience for me. And second was the peer group, right? I think the university attracted some of the world's best. And so the caliber that you're actually mingling with and learning from and experiencing as you go through that course was just amazing and eye-opening for me. And not to say the least, a lot of fun too, right? So it really helped shape who I am today. Post-university, I got a good opportunity to work at a large product manufacturing company, which was a very great learning experience and a stepping stone for me in my career. This was again in the US, right? Fast forward after all these years, my connection with the US has gotten reestablished through my stint at Rework, right? So Rework is a global leader in flexible real estate solutions and was set up in India in 2017, right? So it's almost been 3 years, and we've grown immensely in the country, right? For those of us who are in the system, we've been genuinely surprised by how well enterprises, entrepreneurs, and small businesses have embraced the concept of working flexibly. And this is because our workspaces are designed for flexibility and better collaboration, right? Rework India is present right now in 34 locations across 6 cities, and we have over 40,000 members that include globally recognized names like Spotify, Morgan Stanley, HSBC, and the likes. Rework is committed to providing members around the world with a better day at work for less. I hope you had a chance to visit our workspaces. You may be aware of various offerings we have for anyone wanting a space to work. With the pandemic, posing a big challenge for companies across the world, including ours. It is important for us to lead the change and offer innovative solutions for changing needs of customer segments, right? And in doing so, I'll just share two instances where we've huddled together as a team and come together to come up with some interesting solutions. The first is what we call Rework on demand. The idea here is that if you can book an Uber with a click of a button and food gets delivered through Swiggy, which is an Indian version of DoorDash, then why not book a workspace? So we worked around this, and we've introduced this product called On Demand, where anyone can book a workspace by the day and meeting rooms by the hour, as and when one needs it. In a market like India, and taking into account the current predicament of the pandemic, this would be a game changer for companies from a work from home regime to a work from anywhere future, right? So we really believe that it's important for us to keep and maintain these trends for workspace offerings, workspace design, keeping the global context and the local context in mind. The second instance I want to talk about is what we call Rework for education, right? As colleges...
I just interrupted. You have another 1 minute to finish.
Sure.
We move on because we are at a tight schedule.
Sure. As colleges and universities continue to struggle with pandemic era challenges, we felt that the quest for learning and education shouldn't be hindered, right? Once again, I'm super proud to work with companies that have realized the need for students and institutions. And in our unique way, we are building a new experience for students and faculty alike. With Rework for Education, a combination of our on-demand and all-access products, we are able to create an extended campus for university students and faculties, right? I'll be a little brief here. So Rework is on a mission to provide flexibility to companies to beautifully designed workspaces. This is thanks to our amazing quality of designers, architects, and product teams, and we continue to attract such talent through full-time internship programs, right? On that note, I'd like to again thank Dhaval and the entire team for this opportunity, and I hope all of you guys are staying safe and support the vulnerable individuals around us. I wish you guys a good day, and I'll let Brian take over from here.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to hear you out, and this is just a short survey or a poll which is being launched just to let everyone know where the students are from. If the students can just quickly fill it out and put their options, it'll be very helpful. The questions that are being asked is, where are you joining us from? Which grade are you in? On scale of 1 to 5, how are you feeling today? What do you expect to get out of the workshop? Why did you decide to attend this event? And finally, a fun hand on the heart, are you wearing PJs right now? Just wondering how many of us are actually wearing PJs. All right. Okay. Well, I think 73% I can see right now actually saying that. Oh, wow. That's being steady at 73%. Interesting. Yes, we have students with us today who are all at home, making themselves comfortable while they're on this webinar. And I'm glad to see that. Thank you. Great. We have another couple of more seconds to it. Guys, you need to speed up. 38, 39. Come on, chop, chop. That's how you're supposed to. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop the poll now. All right. We're getting closer. Okay. I can see those numbers coming in. Yes. Okay. 47. All right. I'm going to end the poll now. Thank you. And I'm going to share the results so that we can all see. We're seeing a lot of students from different places. Wow. It's not just the cities. I love that. And we're going to see which grade are you in, and it says 11th and 12th. So it's spread between both of them, and then college, there are about 4 of them. So that's great to see. And on a scale of 1 to 5, how are you feeling today? And we're actually seeing 4, so that means they're feeling good. And they're looking forward to Brian and Diana talking next. So that's exciting. Why did you decide to attend this event? And I want to learn new things. And I'm sure Brian is going to tell you about those new things. And finally, a fun hand on the heart. And wow, 32 of them, 68% are wearing pajamas right now. Exciting. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing that, and we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to introduce Brian to you quickly. So Brian is a program director at the Urban Technology Program at University of Michigan's Taubman College of Architecture and Urban Planning. He's a co-founder and partner at Dash Marshall, a design and strategy studio. He's also the Aileel Serenine Visiting Assistant Professor of Practice. I'm sorry if I actually did not know how to pronounce that right. Brian has received his bachelor's in fine arts from Rhode Island Institute of Design and his master's in architecture from Harvard Graduate School of Design, but we're only talking about Michigan today. So welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Deval. And it's nice to join everyone. I have many fond memories of traveling and working in India. I was actually there for about a month last year, working with Infosys, training the new batch of Infosys team members down in Mysore. And so just really fond of those experiences and very excited to share more about the program that we're working on here. So I'm going to go ahead and share some slides here. The University of Michigan created a new Bachelor of Science in Urban Technology, which is a chance for us to recognize the way that the world has shaped or changed today. So think about the most important challenges in front of us, things like climate change, public health. Do those involve cities? Can we solve those challenges without thinking about cities? Can we solve those challenges or hope to have some kind of positive impact on those challenges without understanding and using technology in some way? So the answer I would put forward is no. Both the fundamental nature of the most pressing things in front of us are both urban and demanding of a response at scale, right? We can't just make stuff work for a few people, a few 100,000 people here, a few 100,000 there. We need to operate on the scale of millions and billions of people to improve lives for everyone. And so what that means is that we need to understand technology and we need to be able to apply it in places like cities. And so the Bachelor of Science is a way for us to train and build a cohort of people who excel at doing that. So if we get into this, Deval had the great idea of having a bit of a project during the discussion. And so I will actually, let me stop this because the slides are malfunctioning. That's a little fun. And one second here. So Deval had the idea of having a workshop during this session. And so what I want to do is introduce you to Ruth Ann. This is my great aunt, okay? So Ruth Ann is 90 years old. She lives in San Francisco by herself, and she doesn't have great eyesight. If you look really carefully down at the bottom of the screen, just above the words lives alone, you'll see a magnifying glass that she uses to read everything. So the question for you, and I want you to think about this during the presentation, and then at the end, we'll have a bit of a discussion. It's a very simple question. What technologies could help Ruth Ann? And you can interpret that however you want. That might be some kind of app. That might be some kind of device. Imagine it'd be hard for her to use a cell phone, for instance, if she has poor eyesight. So what else could we do to help her? That might be something completely different, right? So think about Ruth Ann, think about your own elders and how we might help them, even though they're not the typical person that we think of when we start talking about technology, right? Nihal's workspaces probably are not filled with people who are 90 years old. I'm just guessing, but it would be cool if they were. So if we get into it, what is urban technology? And if you search the web, you'll see images like this, okay? So what is going on here? There's kind of Death Star looking thing. There's wires flying through the sky. It's a generic cityscape. We don't know where that is, if that's Tokyo or Boston or London or what. That's not really interesting to us because we don't know what it is. Okay, so then we also see pictures like this, right? The world is yours, it's on a platter. And there's some apps and things floating up above. This also is pretty meaningless, right? So that doesn't really help us either. So the way that we define urban technology is that it's that which helps us see, shape, or inhabit cities in new ways, okay? So what does that mean? We see cities in new ways by using data to create maps and visualizations that we've never had before because it was simply too difficult or took too much time to put together. So for instance, this is a view of Amsterdam, and all of the green are individual trees that have been mapped by using computer vision to look at Google Street View. And what it tells us is the percentage of tree cover in the city. And when we automate that, it allows us to compare the level of tree cover in a place like Amsterdam versus Mumbai, for instance. Or not only that, to think about one neighborhood in Mumbai versus another neighborhood in Mumbai. And now what does that do? That helps us understand where we want to make investments, right? Where do we want to improve the public realm? For instance, to introduce more shade and help reduce the kinds of urban heat island effects that happen in cities. Shaping is easier, it's more clear. This is about building the city. And so we imagine now that today, there are laborers with hammers and very traditional methods, but actually construction is changing. The tools that we use to build are changing. We increasingly use robots, we use laser levels, things to get a very precise control over the built environment, and also to build buildings much faster. If you've ever passed a construction site, even with tens or hundreds of people, it's so slow, and that means it's so expensive. And so what we're looking for are ways to change how we shape the city so that we can make the city, again, more equitable, more enjoyable, more sustainable, better for everyone. And then inhabit. To inhabit the city means simply to live, right? And so when we think about the types of services, like Nihal mentioned, Squiggly, Uber, etc., they're changing the way that we move, we eat. They're changing how the cities that we already have live and breathe. And so the question is, what will come in the future? Will we be getting our dosas delivered by robots? Will we be getting our groceries delivered by portable vending machines? Will we be using new forms of power like renewable energy, and that requires battery storage like these Tesla devices? Will we be working in new ways, right? Like Nihal mentioned with Rework and their many innovative offerings. And so then I think the next question that's important here is, who creates urban technology? If you study this kind of material, what can you do? So of course, there are companies, all the big ones, right? Amazon, Google, WeWork, Katera, Sidewalk Labs, Uber, Grab, We could go on for a long time. If you want to go work in a big, exciting tech company, they're all touching the city in some way today. But what's also important to know is that it's not just those companies that are doing this work, right? You don't have to be a hardcore engineer to do this work. There's also, for instance, local and national governments, like the Smart Cities Initiative in India that began some years ago. And many other places have similar efforts. And so it takes smart people inside government. It also takes smart people at think tanks and academic research institutions for us to understand what's going on. So it's not just about building the technology, but also about imagining it and putting it together in a more holistic way. So when we ask the question then, what are the kinds of people doing that? Again, software engineers, sure. Mechanical engineers, sure. Electrical engineers, We could name 1,000 different kinds of engineers, and they're all involved, and the best engineers are all coming from India today, right? It's amazing how many Indian engineers I've had a chance to work with. We're also, though, looking at the role for designers and business people, or more importantly, let's rephrase that. People who understand what we should be building, not just how to make it happen. Because the most important question today is, what do we do, right? That's the hardest thing to answer. What should we do? And once we figure out what to do, then we have tons of skill to make it happen. So the program that we're developing is focused on that what question. So what's wrong with this picture that we looked at before? Well, it's quite simple. What's missing are people, right? The image on the right is just lines and buildings. Who wants to live there? Maybe nobody even lives there. The only way we can tell that there's any kind of life in that image on the right is that we see some lights on here and there. So that's not good enough. We need to think about cities for people, like the picture on the left. And to do that, we need to understand cities, of course. We also need to understand technology, how people use it and how it comes together. And we need to understand design, because design is the skill set that we use to imagine new futures. So the goal here is that if you study urban technology at the University of Michigan, you will emerge being able to see cities through data, like the Amsterdam example with the trees that we showed. You'll understand how to shape cities through code, how to make technology that changes the way that we build cities. And you'll be able to design positive change, right? None of this matters unless the things that you do actually improve life for people like Ruthie and your elders and your neighbors and yourself. And so that's the goal. To do that, yes, we need to understand and think about things like smartphones and GPS and broadband and machine learning and apps and all of that. But we also need to understand people, culture, history, politics, the soft stuff that's usually left out of an engineering curriculum. And so the urban technology Bachelor's of Science is combining the technical, hard, quantitative stuff with the soft, qualitative, human stuff, okay? So if we think about it, you know, cities, this is a question of history, ultimately, right? Do we know cities as complex systems? Do we know the story of the people, the story of the culture and the history of cities? Code is about understanding the technology from a hardware and software perspective, and it's very simple. How do we put it together, right? How do you make sense of something like what's on the screen here? Design is about inventing new concepts and ideas, like these students who are in a workshop collaborating around the table. What we're putting together, the program is collaborative. It's based on quick and light prototyping, right? So we start out with the most fast and at-hand means. So for instance, this is an image from the workshop that I taught in Mysore, and the student is imagining a new smartphone. Well, he didn't go and make some actual smartphone. He just used a piece of paper to show what the kind of interaction or the interface might look like. And all that did was spark a conversation so that we could evolve that idea and make it better. Same thing with this, right? This is looking at a VR goggles. And I don't even remember the whole story, but it has a kind of trunk down the middle that I think protected him from the smell of his neighbors while he was using the VR on the bus. What we're looking at is we want people to not only be able to do things quick and light, but also be able to work with precision, like the woman drawing on the screen here at another one of our workshops last year at the University of Michigan. We want you to have fun, right? So of course, going to college, getting your bachelor's degree, it's an important step in your life and your career, But it's not just about advancing your career. It's not just about making your parents happy. It's about you stepping into a fulfilling life. And that means you have to enjoy it. And we really want this to be an experience that is collaborative, collective, and fun. So let's think about, just as some closing thoughts here, how you might apply a degree like this. So, we're not imagining that overnight cities are going to turn into some kind of high-tech experience and things like the marketplace disappear. That's not it. If you think about today, you probably have a smartphone. You might also still have a normal calculator in your house. You have simple technologies like indoor plumbing, right? Think about 2 generations back, even 1 generation back for some of us, how happy our family would be to have indoor plumbing, and how taken for granted we sometimes treat things like that, or like electricity, right? And so what that tells us is that technology doesn't get replaced. We just add new layers on top, right? So we have some of the oldest and most basic experiences, like a central market, like the Mysore market here from my travels last year. But we also have smartphones. We also have delivery robots. We also have the internet. And so we're thinking about layers. So what are the layers of technology that we might add to a market? What are the layers of technology that might help us imagine the future of retail, the future of shopping? What about mobility? How we move around cities? What will that look like? What about the library or other important places around town? How would you make the library more supportive, more engaging, more of a platform for learning the way that you want to do it, not just the way that somebody thought you might want to do it? What about food, right? Food is so important to us as humans and so important to the culture of our many diverse cities. How do we think about the future of food in those places? And how can technology help us imagine and interact and experience food in new and exciting ways? And ultimately, it comes down to this one simple thing. Will this future that we build, that the engineers put together, that the designers and business people imagine and shape in collaboration with those folks, that you design after you graduate from the University of Michigan with a Bachelor of Science in Urban Technology, will that world that you create be a dystopia or a utopia? Will it be terrible or amazing? And that question is up to you. So I'm going to put this URL on the screen. We'll also make sure that there's a URL that goes into the chat so it doesn't get lost. So please, if you have any questions about the program, you of course have the Q&A today, but there's also a link here to the website with more information on it. But let's come back to Ruthie, my great aunt, or people like her who are quite senior and they live alone. And like humans do, they have their own challenges. Ruthie's is poor eyesight. Others have different challenges. And maybe Deval, I'll just ask, how are we doing on time here? Because I know we had just a certain amount of time set aside for the exercise.
Right. I think we do have some plenty of time, Brian, and this was incredible. I think, the presentation that you made, and I do want dosas made quickly like that. I mean, who wants dosas like that? I mean, if I ask people to put their hands up, I'm sure I'm going to find at least 70% of them wanting that. Yeah.
No one wants it more than me, frankly, because it's very hard to find a dosa in Detroit. I have to travel for 45 minutes to a decent place.
Well, I was actually going to ask even Nihal about the fact that, what's his favorite memory of Michigan, and, what's the food place that he would go to if he had the opportunity to do that.
Oh, I think my favorite experiences have been just living on campus, moving around on campus. I think the campus was so beautiful, the South Campus area. We used to live on campus as well as off campus during a few semesters, right?
Right.
And just moving around there, going to Dura Start, sitting in the library there, has been amazing. I think I still vividly remember some of the spaces in the library. So yeah, some very good experiences there.
Wonderful. So Brian, I think we're fine on time. I think we have about another 20, 25 minutes, and we have about 15 minutes for Q&A in between that. So I think you have another 10 minutes, I would say, to sort of complete the workshop. And if you want to ask students any questions so that they can send their responses on the chat, you could probably go ahead and do that.
Yeah, so let's just throw this open, and people can put any kind of message you want, any fragment of an idea or a question mark or whatever it is in response to this question that's on the screen, right? So we'll open the chat, and then as people are responding in the chat, we'll pull some of those ideas up and talk through them.
Great. So what would you want to, is there anything specific that you want to ask them that they want to respond to in particular at this point?
Yeah, well, so it's a really broad question on purpose, right? Because when we think about inventing what comes next, there's no pathway, there's no guideline. So, as Nihal was talking about WeWork, transforming the way that we think about real estate, right? And then having to do it again in response to the coronavirus pandemic. Nobody sat down and said, hey, here's what you do next. You rethink how you can support education, right? You guys had to make that up on your own from scratch. And so the question here is, what technologies could help Ruthie? And that's very broad. So for instance, in the chat, I'm seeing from Akshay a suggestion about a smart fireplace, which could be having a temperature sensor and perhaps light up when the temperature goes lower than a particular amount, right? And it could have, she could also have audiobooks which might entertain her, or perhaps a robot might help her with her medicines. Like, these are great ideas. It's what I'm hearing in that is how does she interact with the environment, right? So if she's not going to be able to read anything on a tiny screen, how do we use colored lights in the room to help her get some information from the environment? And then, for instance, the fireplace, that's that's quite different than interacting with just the buttons on your screen, but it's really exciting because that starts to change the whole space around her by warming the whole space. And actually you can see in this image in the bottom right corner, she has a little heater there because she's trying to keep warm. It can be quite chilly in San Francisco.
I would also go with, hey Siri. That's one thing I would say. And
Yep.
hey, because she needs that support and help. If her, she has poor eyesight, she needs someone that's going to support her. So, either it's going to be Siri, or it's either going to be, hey, I said, hey Siri, and my phone started off. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this is lining up, Deval, with some of the comments in the chat. This is awesome to see stuff flowing in. Alexa is described. Voice-enabled text-to-speech eyeglasses. I love that idea. You put on glasses, and whatever you point them at, she would be able to hear through an audio prompt. And what that brings up is people who are elderly, like Ruthie is, she's used to being able to navigate the world, right? And not have to rely on others, or not have to rely on devices and technology to help her. But as she gets older, she finds that she needs more and more help. And so I'm sure you've seen it with your own family, and sometimes it can be hard to help your grandparents or your elder members because they want to do it themselves, even though they can't really see very well, or they can't really hear very well. And so what's interesting about having eyeglasses that would help read words in front of you is that you could still pick something up that has the information that you need on it, and it could tell you what you're seeing there, right? Without having to ask somebody to read it for you, for instance. So let's look at some other.
Yeah, I think there's some interesting solutions here.
Nihal, you seen anything in the chat that you are excited by? What should we pick up and talk about next?
Well, this is chips in the brain. That's the,
Yeah.
one of the, that Elon Musk is doing. What do you think about that?
I think that's very interesting. The whole idea around Neuralink, that and I love the demonstration that he had put together with the three.
Personally, I thought it was scary.
It's so futuristic, right?
Try to like operate on my brain and then try to put a chip in there. I think that's just telling me that the machines are going to take over pretty soon. But I don't know. What do you think, Brian?
If you think about it, we've had for a long time, there's always some technology that's going to take over, right? And it rarely happens. And when it does happen, it's much slower than anybody thought it would be. So if you think about cars, just plain old petrol-powered passenger cars that are filling our cities and have filled our cities beyond capacity, causing tons of traffic, right? Those cars started here in Michigan. The first commercial vehicle started here 100 years ago, over 100 years ago. And the scientists now, the predictions are that we're basically at the peak cars globally. The most number of cars we'll ever have on Earth exists right now, or maybe in the next 10 years or so. And then we'll see a decline as we start using things like autonomous mobility. But so what that tells me is if we got in a time machine and we went back 100 years, people would be saying, the new car is going to change everything tomorrow. And yet it took 100 years to play out, right? So I am quite cautious when we talk about things like Neuralink or these, because we're seeing glimmers of what will change, but the change again happens in layers, not as a complete like from A to B, right? It was red yesterday, now it's orange. It's not like that. We end up with all the colors. And so that's actually makes it much harder. Like think about the DOSA robot.
Yeah.
That DOSA robot works perfectly fine. Well, it works decent. It can still get confused and lost. But if you're in a city like Ann Arbor with perfect, pristine sidewalks and the snow is shoveled regularly, it's okay, right? But what about if you're in a place where the sidewalk isn't so well taken care of? That robot can't get to you. So that robot is irrelevant in a certain way. And so part of the work that we need to be doing in the next 10 years, 15 years, or actually even next 1 year and onwards from there is about taking some of these glimmers that we're seeing now, like autonomous cars, like delivery robots, like AI and Siri and these kinds of things that all kind of work, right? Like Siri and Alexa, they do a lot, but they're still not perfect. And how do we develop those so that they work for more people in more situations more reliably? Because I might try to say, hey, Siri, order me some food or get me an Uber or whatever. Ruthie on the screen here, she doesn't have the patience for it.
Yeah.
And so we're missing billions of people because they're not being addressed. The technology is being designed for a very specific group of people who frankly look more like me and have more backgrounds more like me. And we're not thinking about people who are, for instance, elderly or have other health issues, or people who don't have the same kind of economic status and therefore kind of locked out or find it difficult to participate. And so this again is exactly why the focus for the program is on thinking about technology from a much broader, more humanistic perspective. So it's not just the engineering questions about how to build things, but it's also about what we should build and who we should build things for.
And that's very interesting the way you put it, Brian, because I feel that is so true. There's a lot of technology which is not accessible, right? It's not commercially accessible. And I think that makes it more difficult. So when you look at it in this perspective, I'm very excited. I'm very excited about a program like this that would actually allow you, to see a lot of change. And maybe if you want, you could talk about some of the, because I know the program sort of starts in winter, And then I think you have a lot of, a lot of things in the mix. It's not just studying all the time.
It is studying all the time, but we'll also do other things with the studying.
Right. I know. It's Michigan. You're going to study all the time, and that's a given.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there's fun, right? There's fun. There's activity that you could do outside. Maybe if you want to talk about what's in store, is there something else that the students are going to get to do outside? If you have ideas like this, do you have a lab that you can experiment? What is it going to be like?
Yeah. So the nature of the program is collaborative and hands-on as much as possible, right? So yes, you will study history. Yes, you will have lectures in classrooms. And we try to keep, across the University of Michigan, the classroom size relatively small. We try to keep it interactive, right? So even if you have a big lecture, you'll then have a conversation afterwards in a small group so that we can process what we learned. The projects that we do are what is most exciting for me, right? So in design, it's very common that if we want to think about something like how to help a person like Ruthie, first we go out and we do a bunch of research, right? So we might go talk to elderly people who have similar kinds of conditions to her. We might talk to people who are not elderly, but also have vision challenges to try to understand, more of the kind of context that she's dealing with. I saw one of the messages in the chat was about data, right? So we might, for instance, use some public data sources like the census, which is a survey of all of the people in the US, to understand how many people are there like Ruthie. What does that tell us? That gives us a sense of how much potential there is in the marketplace, right? If we wanted to make a business creating one of these ideas that we talked about in the chat, how many potential customers are there? Is it even worth it for us to try to do something from a financial perspective? But if we flip that and think about it from a policy point of view, right? Maybe it's not actually about making money. Maybe it's about making life better for people or for saving society money by bringing preventative care. And so there, the data analysis is also hugely important because, again, it helps us understand the scale of the issue. So once we do the research and we start understanding maybe what the opportunities are and understanding maybe some of the challenges in more detail, then we go into a mode of brainstorming. And so you saw some of the images in the slide presentation of people, making the paper smartwatch or the VR goggles or doing drawings and stuff like that. And those are all scenes from different workshops or parts of courses that we've run that are an opportunity for people to work together to say, what do we think might be relevant here? And it's similar to what we've just had in the chat. Like it honestly starts from zero, from scratch, just throwing ideas out. But eventually, you start to hear something that might be compelling. And then we need to develop that and nurture that and grow that as an idea, make it more refined. And so, having great design faculty, people who know the history of cities and urban challenges. We have an amazing policy school at University of Michigan. We have an amazing school of information and College of Engineering. So the benefit of a place like the University of Michigan is that it's so large, frankly, and so strong across many different areas that if you as an individual student get really excited about some micro area, if you're super interested in water quality, right? And that's the thing that you want to get into, or you're really passionate about social justice, and that's the thing that you want. Like, you can go and take classes in that with your peers in studying other topics on campus. You can go and speak with the professors and learn from them directly. And so what we're trying to do is create a kind of crucible where students not only have access to the other resources on campus, but they have a reason to be going after and pursuing those diverse interests, right? And the reason for it is because they're not sitting in a classroom trying to learn some rote memorization of history, but they're trying to solve real problems or think through real problems today. And so what we hope what that gives them is a kind of passion to, as we'd say, pound the pavement on their own, right? And do the work to figure out who they need to talk to and go do it, and then come back and bring their experiences to the projects.
Oh, this is incredible. You know, it just reminds me, and before I move on, and, you know, also introduce Diana, because I'm sure she has a couple of slides there, and we have another 10, maybe 15 minutes. But I really want to talk about the fact that I remember one of the classes that I loved when I was in Michigan was law and economics, because I was an economics and computer science major. And, you know, when I actually went into that class for law and economics, it really allowed me to understand, you know, how the whole tort system sort of works, right? Because we had this case study I sort of remember about McDonald's and how they're actually making sure that their coffee is not more than a certain degree in terms of, you know, how hot it's supposed to be, because someone sued McDonald's because they had third-degree burns. And it's incredible to see that, you know, you learn so much from courses that allow you to sort of combine this. And Michigan has 19 schools. It's incredible to see how you could make friends from, like, you know, the law school to economics and LS&A and public policy and the medical school. It could just go on. And so you're right, you know, Brian, I think it's amazing. And I think we've already seen a lot of questions coming in. And before we continue to them, I want to introduce Diana. And thank you so much, Brian. I think this is wonderful. I think it's so promising to see the kind of work that you're doing. You know, I love your background, by the way. You know, it's nice, it's open. You know, you can see your windows and some drawings at the back. Thank you for sharing that personal space of yours with us. And introducing Diana, you know, I spoke to her briefly on the dry run. Welcome, Diana. She's the admissions officer for Taubman College of Architecture and Urban Planning. She is a specific admissions license to the Bachelor of Science degree in Architecture and Bachelor of Science in Urban Technology. Dinah has several years of recruiting admissions experience. She graduated from Taylor University in Upland, Indiana, where she earned a degree in public relations. Over to you, Diana.
Thank you. I just wanted to note by saying that a lot of this information on these slides are specifically for students that are going to be graduating this year. So I'll be talking a little bit about how that works for those of you who are juniors right now in 11th grade. So this next year, this group of students that are seniors right now, this program is specifically for you. So it is a winter 2022 start. So what that means is that you would be applying this year for then that next year start. So actually we can go on to the next slide here. So for those of you who are in 12th grade right now, the application is open to you. The regular decision deadline is February 1st. And then the program start date wouldn't be until January of 2022. So how that works is that you'd be taking, you wouldn't be taking courses within that fall semester. We'd have other ways of engaging you through that, and then you would actually start in the winter term. So that is a little bit different than maybe most of you have heard of doing things, but then for those of you who are juniors, your application would then open up August 1st of this coming year, 2021. Some of the pieces that we need, these are all listed on the University of Michigan website as well as our website. If you go to admissions.umich.edu, which I'll put this down in the chat as well so you guys have that, all of this information is on there as well. One thing to note that is different for us than from other schools at the University of Michigan is that we are not requiring the ACT or SAT. That is currently for this year, but it's probably going to be going forward as well. Partially due to coronavirus, partially due to us not necessarily seeing the benefit of having it compared to some of the other pieces. We don't want it to hold a student back from applying. So these are the different pieces that we're going to need from you in order to have a complete application. You can do either the Coalition or the Common App. And then all of these pieces, you'll have an online platform where you're then able to check to make sure you have all the pieces in so that you have a complete file.
Thank you so much, Diana. And I was going to ask. There are two questions which I have, right on my mind in terms of which I could see some of the students also want is how many number of students are you looking at, for the first program? That's a good question just to kind of lay it out there. Let them understand. Maybe they understand how competitive the program's going to be. So that'd be great to know as the first question.
Yeah, I mean, partially that'll have to do with how many of you end up applying. So we are kind of just open to seeing how many students are applying. And then from there, we're hoping to have upwards of 50 students. We're not sure if we'll actually have that for our first year program, but that's what we're shooting for. Great,
thank you. And also, I think a question that I had is, and this might be something that Brian also can kind of tell us about is, I know that, Michigan has a separate department that actually takes care of a lot of, innovative content that could even go onto Coursera, for instance. And I think I saw a lot of them actually asking about the fact that they really want to participate in urban technology. Are you thinking of having a small little course that probably could be put up on Coursera or something like that that introduces them, to this concept, which is really going to make it more easier for them to really, kind of a short course or something that allows them to understand that this is something that they would want to pursue?
Yes, just as soon as I perfect my cloning machine and I make a small army of people, will be doing a Coursera short course.
I know it's a tough one, tough job.
Yeah, no. So we are working on creating more ways to connect with the program. That's for sure. But it's a new thing, right? So this is exciting because it's the first time that we're offering this degree. And that means, I just want to be honest with people, that means, there are things like a Coursera course that you could learn to dip your toe in the water, and that would be awesome to have, but we don't have it yet. So it's evolving in conversation, and that's why we wanted to come and join you for this discussion, right? Because I think it's good for people to be able to see more than what's on the website. So
right, no, absolutely. And there's a really good question that we have with Abhishek that says that I'm a third year undergraduate product design student. And he's saying Mr. Robert had mentioned about how Indian engineers are one of the best in the world and how designers and businessmen collaborate with engineers to create urban technology. What is your opinion? Opinion is the scope of an Indian product design graduate wanting to pursue urban planning in postgraduate. So if he wants to do that because he's already an undergraduate student, there's a question which he has: does this program probably lead to, or is going to lead to a master's program at a later point?
Yeah, well, we're not going to make any commitments right now for a master's in this urban technology area. But what I will say is, for instance, at the University of Michigan, you can do a master's in urban planning, and you can complete a certificate in urban informatics, which focuses more on the C kind of data analysis and using computational methods to see cities. That's one way with the current offerings that we have that you could participate at a master's level or postgraduate level at the University of Michigan and still work on some of these topics.
Great. And one of the questions which I feel is important for, I think, everyone here is that what kind of a background are you going to look at for a student? So the interest is important, I'm sure, for the program, but what kind of a background would you typically want the student to have as maybe a prerequisite for the program? Or, what kind of a student do you really want for this program?
Yeah, so what we're looking for are two things, and they're very broad. The first is we want to know that you care about something, that you're passionate. And so that might be you're passionate about your neighborhood or a club that you're part of or history or whatever it is. But we want to know that you really genuinely care about something and that you have an interest in making the world better, not just making yourself rich or becoming famous or, you know, something like that. And the second is that you bring your own creativity to your work. And so that doesn't mean that you need to be an amazing portrait artist, right? Or a beautiful photographer or whatever. You can be creative in writing. You can be creative in the way that you do performances. You can be creative just in how you think about things, right? A unique perspective that you bring to your essays or your other work. And so we're looking for a general sense of creativity that allows you to see the world or approach the world in an interesting way. So we want to know you care and we want to know you're creative.
Great, that's fantastic. Yeah, I think that there's any questions which you know are particular to admissions, you know, which I see particularly that students here would have is you know, considering that we've had or we've seen most of the schools kind of closed and the exams kind of get delayed from time to time. Are they specific sort of, you know, academic requirements that you're going to look at in case if some of their grades are low, or you know, because they're studying online, there might be a concern in certain ways. I mean, you know, how are you thinking of sort of measuring them? Because, you know, some of them might be facing that kind of a challenge in this last 8 to 10 months.
So let me try to answer or begin answering this, and then Diana, you chime in as well, please. And Diana will know in much more precision than I do because these details are not my specialty. So we have basic course requirements that high school students must complete. And then we are not looking at test scores this year because of the testing difficulties that we've had with testing centers closed and things like this. I believe, Diana, you can step in for our international students. What are the additional requirements?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing would be either taking the TOEFL or the IELTS, just because we want to make sure that like the English language learning level is up there. But other than that, yeah, the minimum course requirements are like 4 years of an English course, 3 years or more of math, 3 or more years of a natural science, and then 3 or more years of a social science in your studies. And then we're also looking for things outside of that as well. It's not just the things that you're doing in a classroom. We're looking to see in your essays and different things like that, how you've been engaged, how you've been involved. Obviously, that's going to be a little bit different if you were just going based off of this past year. But we're looking at a lot of different things. It's definitely a holistic review. It's not just one thing that we're holding on to. But since we don't have the opportunity to do anything like an interview, having the opportunity to learn more about you through your essays is definitely important, more important than just looking at a transcript and saying, oh, they took these classes and these are the specific grades that they got within them. Don't get me wrong, that is important, but it's not like the only things that we're looking at.
Okay, I also have a question, and there are two of them actually here that I could see. One is saying, if I'm a B grade student, but I won a RoboWar competition last year, what is my probability of getting in? Now, I know that's a very open-ended question, but I think we can have some fun here. So maybe if you want to go for that, Diana or Brian, I'll leave that up to you.
The answer I'll give you is probably not the answer you want, mysterious person A in the chat, which is we never know until you try, right? So of course, there are people who've dropped out of college and yet they've done amazing things. So, you know, at the end of the day, we're looking at the big picture, right? All of your experiences and your qualifications put together. And that's how we approach admissions, right? It's, you know, look, honestly, If you said, I'm a D student, but I won Robo Wars, I would say, you're not going to get in. It's just not going to happen. But a B student is still a good student, right? I know everybody wants to be perfect, but a B, you should be proud of having a B, because that might mean that you're doing other things like the robot competitions and stuff. So that's perfectly fine, but we can't like really address those questions because we just don't know enough about you. And so the application process is designed to give us more ways to learn about your experience, your strengths, and then ultimately we need to look at all of the applicants and build just a pool, you know, a cohort of people that together are going to be strong. I'm also seeing questions about physics. Physics is not required. We require 3 years of math. So again, it's not an engineering heavy course. You will be doing some coding and engaging in some of those issues, but we're not expecting you to have really deep math and hard science skills.
Great, fantastic. Also, I think there was a question about if there are any scholarships. I know international students at the undergraduate level seem to be a little bit more challenging, but if you have anything that you would like to discuss, please do so.
Not necessarily anything specific, but there is the possibility with creating a new program. It's kind of up in the air what those specifics look like. We do have merit-based scholarships for our undergraduate students right now who are participating in architecture. So I would like to see that that is also going to be happening for urban technology as well. Brian, I don't know if you have anything else extra on that.
Okay.
That's it, yeah.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much. I know that there is still questions about creative portfolio for admission. Do I need to like have a portfolio of something? Okay, no. So I could see Diana saying no, there's not a need. There's something on subject requirements, which I think Brian just went through, that you don't need physics in particular, but math is important. But I think that that kind of answers most of the questions that I've seen, and I think we're almost at the end of our time. Yeah, I think this has been a fantastic session. Anything, Diana and Brian, you want to talk about the School of Architecture and Urban Planning? Anything specific on terms of the campus, or just give them an idea of what it sort of feels like being there, or if you have a picture of it. And I think my memory of Michigan is so much of being at the Ugly, being at the Diag, being on North Campus, because I was computer science and then economics as well. So I've kind of ferried myself from all those from the North Campus down to Central, and then I lived at the at the dorms in North Campus, and then I came down to Central Campus, and I mean it's been such an amazing experience being on campus at Michigan. And I don't even know where to start, how incredible that feeling is. And of course, football. I know, the virus has just made it very difficult, in some ways this year, but I think I'm so happy to hear that we have the vaccine coming out, and, hopefully that's going to, provide a solution in the next 6 months for all of us in some ways. So exciting, looking for that. But yeah, if there's any memories or anything that you want to talk about the School of Architecture, that's probably the last thing that we could talk about before moving ahead or concluding.
I mean, the main thing that I would want to say is that we are up on North Campus. So if you look at a map of the campus, there are technically 3 different campuses. South Campus is more of the athletic side of things, and Central Campus is where most things are. But up on North Campus, you're also surrounded by School of Music, Theater, and Dance. We're actually in a building that's attached to the art school. Engineering is also up on North Campus. So there are a lot of things that are up on North Campus that are a little bit more specific. So, yeah.
Great, fantastic. I know it gets cold in winter, but I think that's a lot of fun after the first winter. So, I mean, I would say it's, for me, it's just go blue. So thank you, everyone. I think this is some great, questions, and I know Brian's been answering a lot of the questions as well. Thank you so much, Brian, for doing that. And thank you all the students who participated today. I hope that you've made the most of the session. Dinah has put more details about the website. So, you guys can sort of visit the website as well, and we can send that to you over later. There's also a feedback form that Deepa has shared, and it would be nice if you all could just fill out the form, let us know how the session went, and if there's any other questions that you might have. Brian and Diana, if you want to share your email IDs or any email ID, a specific one in the chat box, you could actually do that in case if there are any more questions, and they could reach out to you. Great, fantastic.
Cool. Well, I just want to say from the University of Michigan side, thank you so much to Deval and your team at Tni Career Counseling. It was also a pleasure to share the session with Nihal and see the WeWork perspective. So thank you so much for having us. And we look forward to seeing you alums come visit us at some point, and also meeting the students who hopefully will join us. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Diana, Brian, Nihal, Trey. Nihal, if you want to have any last words.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Dhaval was great joining the session here. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and looking at all the ideas that came by from all the students out here. And thanks, Diana, and thanks, Brian. Just having this conversation really relived and jogged some of my memory at Michigan. And I loved being here. So thank you so much.
Maybe, Nihal, you could give the vote of confidence that when you have urban technology majors graduate, you're going to hire them, right?
Absolutely. I think we continue to look for very bright, innovative folks, and I can most certainly believe that the School of Urban Technology would be able to bring that to the fray, right? So absolutely.
I thank you so much, everyone. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Nihal. And thank you, all the students. Have a lovely weekend ahead. And if you have any more questions, please do get in touch with us. And please fill out the feedback form. Thank you again.
Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this video. And I hope to help you with your goals and aspirations to attend a top university.